Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we are going to talk about consciousness and holding that consciousness, and one of the big signs of a breakthrough for us when it comes to holding our consciousness. Now, you're going to find as you go through your journey, there will be a lot of times you're going to have a discussion with a person, have a reality start to unfold in a certain way, and you will leave it, and when you get out of it, it's almost a flip of when this used to happen in your human realities. Like in our human realities, we would be in a situation, right? And we would leave it and we were like, oh, I should have said this. I should have said that. If only I thought of all these comebacks. In our human existence, we always call them comebacks, But I already thought of all that stuff when I was in the situation, but instead I didn't, and I thought about it later. And the flip of that, so we get into expanding our consciousness, embodying in our consciousness, acting as higher aspects of ourselves, we find we start to do something similar. But in this case, it's more of I didn't hold my consciousness. I went unconscious there. I came out of a situation and could see where I had dipped out of consciousness. I had not come from my highest. I had not said what I should have said. I couldn't read the energy of the reality. And you're going to go through a lot of times when you're going to notice that. And that's a breakthrough in itself. Because when you go through a lot of times and you notice that, one of the breakthroughs is that you can notice it and you can see it. A big part about expanding your consciousness and being able to anchor that consciousness in, and once you've done that and you started living it and really coming from your highest aspect, coming from your highest place, whatever that place is for you, and that's always going to be different for us. We're always going to be going higher. Our highest place 2 days ago isn't our highest place now. And when you can start to see when you're not there, when your heart is closed. A lot of people call it your heart's open, your heart's closed. And when your heart's closed, you're human, you're in your head. And when your heart's open, you have the capability of operating from higher consciousness. It doesn't mean you are. A lot of people say open your heart, but it's not just about opening your heart. It's about opening your heart and living from that place and really being that place in a sense. It's not just let me have my heart a little bit open, or to our human, if our heart's a little bit open, it's easier. Or we think that's all we have to do. And you're going to find along the way, this is kind of a sidetrack, but I'm going to throw it in here. You're going to be going through a lot of stuff to open up your heart and get your heart open and get to that openness. A lot of people will get through that through relationships because that's how we had to do it, because there was no other way to kind of open us up. And this is when we're kind of starting to come through, and starting to, a lot of it's have maybe gone through our awakening. Normally for me, it was, but what my universe sent me a child to open my heart up, because some people use pets to start to do it more. Open you up, because I was going to be very blocked off due to the relationships I had been in especially the past 3 years at that point, of any romantic relationship. I would not have opened up to that. I look back, and that's when we always talk about being able to look back and see why it had to unfold that way. And you can see the cadence and everything that happened to you, and why it had to happen that way, and why it had to be this person or this situation, why it had to be that way, because you wouldn't have opened up another way. And that's why there are sometimes people have the more traumatic things happen to open them up, where they will have, usually it's a mix, that you can have people will leave, physically leave the realm. You can have, people just break up and leave. And I had a lot of that. And we feel like our heart's breaking and it's really just busting wide open. But a lot of times after that, we'll kind of start to shut back down a little bit again, and then we'll have another situation come through to open us up more. And it always feels more intense, because we're going deeper into trying to open us up. But there's also that softer side of that, where your universe will send something in to open you up. It could be a romantic person. If you're going to open up that way, I was not. When it was really time for me to really start to open up more, I was not going to open up that way. I was a little too jaded, and I know where my human was back then, and I was not going to open up to the capacity I opened to a child. So a little bit of a sidetrack, but just in case people are in that situation, you'll be surprised what your universe will send you to open you up. You will be very surprised what it'll give you something that's going to kind of inch its way in there. But you'll notice that you'll get out of conversations and realize where you weren't open, where you had shut back down, where you had gone small, where you had contracted back down. If there's a certain person that's contracting you back down, making you not be energetically as powerful as you know you can be. And you're going to see that, and you'll see that in hindsight for a while. You'll leave a situation, go, oh, I totally shut down there. I went small. I shrunk back down. I was pulling energy, and I was not pushing it out, in a sense. I wasn't being my highest aspect. That was not what I showed there. It was a conversation where I totally went unconscious because perhaps the other people in the situation were not conscious. And that's not a judgment on who's conscious, who's not. Just when you're looking at these situations, you're going to start to see that. If you're letting someone that is still making decisions from their ego aspect, and they're still making decisions from that aspect, but yet you're listening to them and you're letting them kind of control the cadence of what's going on, you're letting them control the reality. You're letting them control what comes in and out of the house. I've talked to some people where if one person says, oh no, we can't have that, then it's not even a discussion, whatever it is, because they don't want it there. And part of that is you can't really interfere in that relationship. Eventually the two people will see that one person is trying to slow down the other one's ascension process, but right now they're not in the place to see that, and that's okay. It's not for us to interfere. We can just recommend. If someone asks, and if nobody asks, I don't recommend. I got through that a long time ago. No one asked my opinion, I don't give it. But for me, when I started getting into being able to hold it and being able to shift something and shift a conversation, a big moment for me was to be able to do it in the moment when I was there. When I was in the conversation, knowing a couple things would happen. And it still, still happens now. I'm in the conversation and I can see, okay, this is completely in a third dimensional consciousness. What's the best thing I can do here? Sometimes the human ego just wants to be heard. So if you're with a person and they just want to bitch something out for a while and talk about how much they were a victim or how much they got screwed, sometimes you're going to feel like the thing to do here is to say, okay, yeah, you did get screwed, because that's what they need to hear. It needs validation. Human ego always wants validation. There's also a point where you're going to have to shift that. You can't continue to, every time this person shows up, agree with that, but there are some times when we will do that just to validate them. And when you're kind of in that situation and you're reading the field, but you're conscious enough to read the field and still be conscious. You're not going unconscious because your field is strong. You have enough soul light now. You have enough inner power. You have enough soul. Enough soul is embodied in where you can hold the field even when other people around you are not conscious. And they are ruled by their human aspect, and they are spinning in a different direction than you are, because when you are the highest vibration in the room, you control the field. And you'll get to the point where you can control the field. I don't really know if I like the word control, but basically you're the one that's dictating the field. They're now in your field. That's basically what it means. It's going to always defer to the person of the highest vibration in the room, because they're the one that's going to hold the field. Everyone is now in your field if you can hold it. And sometimes it's just we just hold the field, and we really can interact with people because we can't hold the field and also hold 5 conversations at one time in the beginning, because it's too much. It's hard enough sometimes just to hold the field when everyone else is spinning out in a different direction. So you're going to find you're going to go through steps of this. But just knowing, even if you can just see it when you left the room, that's still massive. Don't beat yourself up about what you should have said, or the seed you should have planted, the way you could have consciously shift the whole reality how they were seeing the reality, how you could spin it around in a different way. I know I used to go to bars a lot and just sit and talk. People would just come up and sit and talk. And I kind of learned that way. It was a big way for me to learn. It was a big testing ground for me to just be able to test out how I could do with a lot of people around and listen to the situations. Could I be at my highest? Could I come to that place? Was I going small? And if I was, who was I going small around? Was there one person I wasn't holding it exactly with? Because I didn't want to be judged by that person, which is really my own judgment of how they would see me, right? We cannot be judged if we don't hold judgment. That's a very important thing to remember. We judge ourselves so much. You know, we always judge ourselves so much. So it's really important to see that we're the ones doing that. But we're reflecting it back through another person. So it's always good to just be conscious of these things. Look at where you can hold the field, but when a lot of people start asking you a lot of questions, you can't hold the field. That's why I would say your powers are going to be a little diminished. You know, I just watched a review on Wonder Woman 1984, and they talked about how her power set was kind of all over the place. And that's what's coming to mind right now. Your power set's kind of going to be all over the place, you know. Sometimes you're going to be able to hold the field, but you can't really hold a lot of conversations. That's not going to be where you are. And it's really going to change in the moment for a lot of us. And it's going to be a while before you're able to do that. Hold the field and hold conversations at their highest. Hold the people in those conversations to their highest. Because it's such a drain on the field when you're the only one keeping it up. And you're going to find you can't read the field as well as you can when you're by yourself. You're always going to have more capability when you're alone because no one's in your way. No one's in your field. No one's obstructing your transmission. So you're always going to have the most power. Your power is going to be at your highest when you're by yourself. You're going to be able to work the most. That's why sometimes I'll do videos when no one's in the house but me. Sometimes I will do videos when there are people in the house because I don't have to have complete vacancy of my field because there's no one really lives so far away from the houses next door that it's no one around except animals, and they don't tend to bother me as much because they don't hold the human consciousness. That's one reason why we find the animals won't bother us as much. They don't hold the human programming. And usually they're big activators for us. Our animals can be like, mine are big galactic activators. So I got them both when I was in my galactic phase. So they're both very different galactic aspects. Now, I would rather have no one here. Like tonight I'm doing this and there's nobody here. And I wait, and so I've been filming at night a lot because I wait till there's no one here. When everyone's gone and I can just set and do it with no one here. Because even though I can do it the other way, I like to do it more this way. I feel like I get more because I'm not trying to overcompensate. My field is not using energy to overcompensate for anything else. And that's why I'm able to do it. So just be aware of that. You know, now I cannot stream because I have to stream in a certain part of the house where I would be bothering other people. And it's different to live stream and do videos. Two different aspects. They require a different amount of connection in a sense to be able to do that. Streaming is a lot quicker. So a lot of times you're going to also find you're going to go on iterations of what you're able to do. Streaming, long periods of time, being able to hold your consciousness, because your consciousness is always going to hit a little bit higher than your body is going to be able to hit, because you got to bring your body up. The body's always going to be lower than the consciousness you can hit. But you're always going to be aligning your realities from the higher consciousness. So that's why when your body's in a certain place for a while, you won't have the consciousness to realign it in that moment. But eventually you'll be able to. So just look at where you're not conscious. You know, look at where you went unconscious. Look at how that's starting to change over as your vibration changes. As your vibration gets higher, you're going to be able to, in the moment, see this is completely unconscious. You know, I can keep going with this conversation, but it's completely unconscious. And let me see, can I shift this? Is it better to just leave the room because I don't even need to be part of this conversation? Is it a point to get involved in the conversation, especially if it's very 3D, very human conversation? Usually I don't even partake in them. If there's something I can say that could shift it, I will. But if it just feels like there's really nothing here that's gonna, just your presence will shift it too. That's why in the beginning when I say sometimes we just go out places and hold the field, because your presence shifts it. Talking stimulates the human aspect of people, like they want to hear you talk, but you don't have to. So for a while we don't really say much. I mean, I never speak when I'm out in a very populated places unless someone talks to me. That's kind of always been the rule I've had. I just don't talk unless someone talks to me. I don't, you know, I just hold the field. You know, I hold the field, and that's what my job is at that moment. Unless someone comes over and talks, and then I have something else to do on top of holding the field. You're also going to find you're going to get tired. I can usually tell when I get tired if I'm having a conversation with someone and you feel like you've kind of done everything you can do in that moment, and the conversation, you'll feel when the conversation starts to shift because it'll start to pull your energy. And it is in a sense pulling your energy, but not like they're like I don't like the whole energy vampire term or any of that, but in a sense it's sort of like that, but sort of in a different way. It's just your body is having to work harder because they shifted now. Their heart closed, they went back into their head, and now what the conversation that was inspiring 5 minutes ago is now you can feel the drain, and now you're tired because now you're just having to work harder. So are they draining the field? Technically they are, but it's also your field's just putting out so much that it's getting tired. And it's trying to hold the conversation to the highest, and now that shifted, and now that's going to require more work. Or you also know the conversation's gone as far as it's going, and you can kind of feel that because the person's shut down again. And you can feel when that happens. I always know because I start to yawn. The minute I'm yawning in a conversation, I know like this is no point to continue it. We've gone as far as we're going to go tonight with whatever the topic was. We're not going any farther. And energetically, it's done. That's normally my sign that energetically it's done. There's no point of going forward anymore. We're done. And we just move on from there. So I think that about covers it. So, okay. Really be conscious of when you're falling in and out of it. Look at where you are when you're out in public places. Look if you want to go out in public places. There'll be times when you want to go out. It'll be a year where you feel like you're supposed to be out a lot that year, and then you might the next year be in a lot. I'm in a kind of in a lot right now phase. It's funny because my human thought I would be out a lot this year, or actually last year too, but I've been in a very in a lot phase, I guess, for the past few years. So I'm due, I guess, soon for a big out phase, but it's just other things your body's trying to do. And normally when we're in a big in phase, it's because our body's upgrading, and we don't want any distractions. We want nothing energetically pulling on the field. We just can't have any of that. It's our body's trying to rework, our body's trying to do so much that it really just has no energy to put forth in that stuff. So we do what we can in other ways, and also look, I was talking more in person to person, but look on when you're online and when you're going unconscious, when you're about to type something. My rule of thumb is, and it should be the rule, I think, just in general, but my rule is if I wouldn't say it to someone's face, why would I say it? And what am I supporting when I post a comment or when I say something? So I'm pretty careful what I say when I post a comment and what I'm feeding. And some stuff, even though I can understand where some content came from, I can't post on it because it is feeding an old system, even if I can understand why. Because it's important to be able to understand and look at where is everyone coming from here. One person might be in your field and acting very greedy, and someone else might be doing the same thing, but they're doing it from different places because of different situations they've had. We don't want to lump everyone into doing it for the same reasons. No one's had exactly the same journey. We have to be able to be open to see that. What is the motivation? It's like a character study in a sense. What's the motivation of why they're in this energy right now? Can I see that? Or I'm going to lump everyone in the same. Humans want to lump everyone in the same, whether it's a political party or, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I see it more toward the political and stuff like that, where everyone's one thing or the other. Where when you're dealing with ascension and you're being able to really see through, and that's what you have the capability to do, kind of see through the field, see through the people, see through the walls the human ego puts up, see through the walls that we used to put up. And really be able to look and not judge what they're doing. Because we all did the same shit. We all did the same shit. At one point or the other, we did. So really be able to look at why are they in this place? This person is in this place because you can feel or see, or maybe, see that. And that's why this person's acting this way. It's from a different energy in a sense. Even though the emotion is the same, it looks the same, but it's from a different place than this other person's coming from. So what I might do here is not appropriate here. So when you get to that place where you can really start to separate out, it's not anymore like, oh, that person is acting unconscious. It's, okay, let me look. Why is this person acting this way? What has led up to them being here? What has happened to them so now they're in this space? Look at all the times of what we used to do. And all the times we did things very unconsciously, and what led to us doing those things. would we have labeled ourselves, and I don't like the good and the bad, but labeled ourselves as a bad person? No. Look at what led up to the stuff we had done. So we have to be open to be able to see that and not categorize everyone in the same bucket. Sometimes we'll hear people say, oh, they're just not ready for that, or they're not ready for that. It's like, it's more like we're not ready for them to be ready for that. They're ready for what they're ready for. Look at where you're kind of putting someone in a box right away because of the path they've taken, how they've gotten here. We're all came to ascension and awakening through different paths. Some of our paths are similar, some of them aren't. It doesn't really matter how we got here. It doesn't matter what tools we use. A lot of us did energy work or went through the Reiki path, and then that got old and we went to something else. That was my path. Some people do different things. They're going to utilize different things. There was one person I used to work with. I can't remember what she was working on, but I can't remember what it is now. But it was totally different than what I had done, how I had gotten to a certain place. But we all kind of end up in the same spaces. It was the beginning of ascension. Or middle, or wherever we are, because we're always going to be doing ascension. We never finish. But no matter where you are in your process, a lot of people come to it through different ways. But every piece and part that you came through had a reason. And you'll eventually be able to go back and decode why it all had to happen that way, how each domino led to the next domino falling. Someone explained it like that the other day. I think that's a good analogy. One domino hits the next domino. Someone else might have a different set of dominoes on how they got there, but they're still going to get there. If they're supposed to, if it's their time. It's also a part of sometimes it's just not people's time yet. And that's what we don't like. We don't like having to leave people behind because it's not their time yet. But we can't let that hamper when it's our time. Just because someone was there for us doesn't mean we have to be there for them. And that sounds selfish and cynical, and I don't mean it to be. It's just, it might not be your place. It might be your place to be there for them. It might not. It might be your place to be there for someone else down the road, and someone else will be there for them. Because what they have to go through in the next 5 years or whatever, making a story up right now, but whatever they have to go through, it's just going to hamper what you have to go do. You can't be part of that. So the person that might come along for them might not be you. But because they were there for us when we were in different parts of our awakening or certain parts of our ascension, we feel like we got to stay. We really got to look at that too. And really be able to unravel, is that what I'm supposed to do? And that comes from connecting with them. It's always connecting with them to see, am I supposed to be here? Normally we're not there for the people that were there for us. We might be for a little while, but when it really starts getting rough, usually we're not supposed to be. They have to go do their human stuff. They might have to go live more of their human life to get to where they're really going to go through their awakening. And you might come back into their life later on. Maybe you won't. But it's not as linear as that. It doesn't mean if they don't need you, you won't be there if you feel like that you're supposed to be. Because we're going to be there for everyone. It's just not from the attachment of being there for everybody. It's not from feeling that attachment of being there for everybody and that we have to be. We get rid of all the attachment. Okay. All right. Now I guess we're done. Okay. Keep practicing the art of intuition.